Jaya Maye Jaya Jala Maroba Jave Gonjela Yerme Tomara Zenjela Jela Ganda Yanda Anarme Jeje Oralano Jeje Zada Namje Yondera Zone Dorje Jange Gomba Nyordo Yo Borde Zada Marumboje Doge Jor Bemede Yone Korenjim Bogone Jizoi Kosong Doje Ngado Zardo Zo Menjuje Nje Borana Tuzum Sanje Kanje Ngoni Razi Jugong Mazo Donzebe Zavalama Namla Guzan Zan Nongradanya Nga Tsangmala Teni Nyingpo Dele Kya Dantin Do Teni Samba Sanja Chodo Toki Simba Hyos.
Good afternoon, everyone. Please again generate motivation, the motivation of bodhicitta as you listen.
Teni Dambantu Mahya Yen Te Yaksari, Teni Dixon Rosen Yaksari Matanga to Sama Matabari, Tapa Yomari, Yon to Supando Robin, Sen Devondo, not to Sama Tapa Yomari, Mone Yomari, Jerto, Jeong Bichani Tapa the Timba, Denzent Yomari, the young girls or that Taran Kazan to tune the Tung Zoku Nakanda in Lorna. Tawata Timba Yomarite and the Gandar and the so George the Pakosona, Yasari, and the Tangi Mama to the neck, come to the Candle.
We better go on because we better get done eventually. We're all impermanent, and especially the evidence of impermanence is increasing all around us these days. So we better keep going.
Molas, Teni Tata Tangazo Nang Parchi Duke Kexea de Seratapi. Kexera de Tapi, Tapela, Soyan Nipate. Teni de Guru Rinpoche, Dorje Drakpo Nana, Kandason Ris, Hubayanas. Parchi the gate Kexen, Pomo Mane, Gata Dulcimbo, Jatar Naya Devi, Madapte, Rangatrama, Shazam Trawayan, Stanga Sotendura, Radio Sarton Songjo, Nelo, Sir Horve, Zonze Rapuanga Data, Nang, Nanze Himbe, Country Tatso, Yata Jebe, Zaporang, Ransar Debs, one Yimitza Bergatawa, Yata Popati Yana, Matsama, Zuma Zimiri Mato, calling the Sotama, Trananga Dim, and Trananda Dimbersama, the Trana Dimbersama, Atanki, Zebanangiri, Kaomari. Don't her gun, ye de Kondicha, Dija Machu Pumbo Tosenboros, take a Machu, Pombo Tosenborg, the Majella Brother. Danze Lutan, Mimi Kangar, Nyarse, Dan the so sinking Mambori. Jitop Sancho, Simki Molam Dad, Sitata so Gori, then Ataka Carrera, the China, but Zigu, Zigukilla. Then Chigon and Lem Corre, the Makira, Kiri, not the sinking at Sasani Mambori, you need such you to make Jata, then a dead house in the holiday. Oh, then Jamgon Kongtrul Lodro Nana. Tarpa Drapala Parchi Sepe Duri Jaslat and Nyingpo Gere Nam Kexer Tamnes Te and Nyingpo Kexer Tata Kong use. Jer do Nyomon Pombo Chibda, do yes, Dopman Yomo do the high, but do the Chibdog do the then does change Pumpudu la so do yes, so young channing at all, think I hear called it. Love do corn jictin chimpo, yes, so direct Yada Suncha Zadok and Horta Topa Samja Matabanam dance, that so Batanga Kanda Jago, na dan Lord Durjana, Cheparja do Jumbo laundry so yes, Angatola. China talk de la go red or the dudes or the jumbo or the JJ new cheese, maybe new cheese, Nanawa the JJ Charson, come by Kahin and Nilang, a JJ another loose a second. Nang to Pilamaton, the Lomba Mina Shadow, did not do the Tama or Sergeant J. Jumbo dudes, the Tama. That the soul of Parkins in the court, the soldier, Namdo contracts or Nams Namdo Telatin contract Nanta or in contract and a redondo, days are Tanando, Kiodi some, Kiodi some, Pen Tayu Sepal, Tayu or the Tayo to Lombarina, Mone Putachi and Tame Baton as a Hakos one night, Kiodi and Masotela, Dimberzen, Dio and Dorna, Dimberzen Osaka, young Nelo Tela, Denzen Yichi Se Matabiraka. Truly, each scene, don't have your name as a deal. So, Jota Lonso, Sama, that Jota. I'm not doing Yamnitsu, Zoba Kimbo or gone, Kieran or gone, Zoran or gone, Lamrim, the young new Kapsala, Yadu Kariko, another Jotari. Won't hit Yobare, Nango. Pajar, Yamnik, Manchek, the Taylor, Honduko, don't the Kopana. Ching another reason, Malamre Yings. Tam Siri Johnson, Ala Yabor and Sari some the reward of the Duke of the Kick all it the Labor de Charsoga de Sabozorwa, Monchi, Jotasea. Then he Manchek de Charsoga Lama Manchek, Charsoga de Consoga Lama Yaboma, and Lama Dor is all it's a huge. That the Totango Hill comes to go your Charso Jaragan. That may put a matter. Then Totango here go over there. Lama saw Jora the Higo Casarva. Then Lama Yapomo on the Dobon. Then to Mambo Hero, Totan so Sama. Rela, Jogre, Jog the sand, Jogji, Yawa, Doder and Watcher, Somba Teta, Donna, Statason, Dodeka Consecari on the Donna, Dordayana, Hedan, Duja, Tomosum, Ranza Pomane, some the Yawa Seco, Duja, Modon, Hedan, Podon, Tomo Manega Don La Sofa, Duja, Tomosum, the dinner, Pomo Mane, regular laundry gate, Partu, Duchimbo Napso, Charre, there's some Darvasepalas and the ten of some Dala, number Zangi. Sele Chomtra Jata Naya Donate, and the Junzi Zaya Madab de Yamebe Seros, Katsiki, Katsite, Katsina, Katsigona, Zopaki Bolona, Mewar Tachun, Tachun, the Yimits of Dragatawa, Rangi, Lempo, Movo, Moni, Tawanyami Sina, Zopaki Bogona, Magona, Zopachimbo Seria, the Katsinina, Pinkamari, Zopachimbo Tudor, Tubazami Pino, Ramato, Tazikoni Cuba, Simbuki, Chevers. Gerald Tatal within the Chiba Chiran Gerald Tokamari, Kares in Magama, Magama the Saji Yomari. Then the Zoba Chimbo, Ma Tolo, Duke of Gila Sobada, Bunta, the Garabdo song, said the Malon, he Kare, Chirapin, the Chiba, Mevano, Chanako, Tubazami Pino, or Mato. Yemebe said, Penna Ranga Jamada, Chaza Sumbotrona, yes, sometimes so Jamada, so on Rogan or what. Jamag Tanghari, Chaza Sumbo, soon Kiri something. Chaza Sumbo Runton, and Anda Jawa, Yano, do Yanos, do get Movone, Javade song. Jictin Tan, Sewa can you Jikta to her Kini, you go and Jan, take Dadan Zamba, Lesona, Jechi take the checking stars and Jawaji Chimbo dancing. Karisako is he can do church and the dancing and now say out the dancing the parking. Then the Sana sounds of a girl to cake tardy. Sana sounds of going on the jet. Don't that dancing the Zawa Chu. Dancing Zawa Chus and dancing the Patsamana zone. Goyam, the charge or sorry. They Pacharo and the Zokinta Saki Tawa, Totari, Omagatawa, Totari, Chatan, then or not so. Drengone, Dregude, Tata Danzen, Danzen, Drengoma, the Nanzen, Nga, Sayat and Dread, Tindred, Pachuna, then in Sana Sansam Dread, Chudo Sari, then Sari. He is on Batara, Tamchi, Zawa, Nanzen, send the Yanas, and not them send the Yana. The Yana, Tengsan, Tingang Sarton Sungjoto, then you Rango, Machite, Sarchas, Srudo, Hovala, Zomu Yortos, Zomu Yor, Zambasem, Telan, Zizi, Hipare, Gin, Yor Zodere, Srudan, so Dinzen, Nata, Chut, Yor, Soso Karsamajan Zandoke, Srudi Koran, Sir Yor Zok, Telan, Zizi, Nga, Hipati Kisin, Danze Keras, Journey, Wange, Sacha, Hedan, Dongchan, Lucha, Songjo, Rangi, Tomoto, Songos, Teleja, Nyomo, Jet, Yedon, Songe, Tedak, Randan, Mina, Lover, Zonin Taye, but Tetan Namate, Ransem, Dujisas, Rangisem, Dujisa, Rangisem, Gigeno, Chisava, they do that. Don't get seriat and Dorje so in the career sena. Gyamtso Malare Bak Sona Yiri. Dorje Drat, Ransen Chipoyens, Chokgyur and Rodo Pamayan, Malay Sata, Re Pajar, Chixina, Padma South, Kantaya, Dorje Drat, Ransen Jumbo, Danzen, the Yen Song, the Tateri, Ransen the Giganos, Na Hipata, Gig, he saws. Jope Jomaya, so Lama Tratop Tsal and Joma song this, so Lama Tratop Tsal don't say and Joko, the Yabat number of Jumtro Dole Calisson, Sancho Sabanam, do you land, Tsundil in Joma River Saos, they just Rikana, Mutson Palane, Duki, Cheke Sade, they need the Duyan Saros. That day, Sancho Jambaya is number 7 dollar. That they know, those are the Tendukin Joko, so he Jope Nielines, and Jokzik Nielin the country on Coderies, and Tommy ne, Nar Zambala Himbe, Toma Mebane, Tangaso, Nar say out the Tambo turn to the Nga, say out the tin and Turtle, Nanze Delatin, Hincha Chera, Jack Hinchanto, Jack Hinchanto, Jack Hincha, the Zamazoma, Nar Zambala Himbe, Jiji, Hinchamola dinner. Kin Tam Shas at in country. Tadang as a Kin Tam Karate, Samsung as a Sena Nasa Kadamaga. Kin Tam Nanga Jones in Nasa and Jong, they chair Rodu, Tabar Milan and Ramadan, Turn Ramadan, Tom Ramadan, to do Mabonga, Mamma, Tonio. La Barton de Lombard to Mabondo. Then Milan Mambo shot Tabar, Jake Pungi, Pungu, some left some aging talk with the near talk with the Nanda part of Roger second of the mountain door. That the Jin Tomo in your dinner. Jin Tomo the dinner, country has all given Nankan Zuji Kipale, Dole, Berna, Popa Yopale, Long Yoba Yenos, Popa Yoba, Long Yoba, and Yoba Yeno, Nam Yoba send the John Kanda, Kana Yoba Dela. Do you can like neat horse? Namjaba Senda, John Woodsani, Contrary Woodsani, Tell a Duke. Do say the Tundrikin, Rang around the Hong Kong, do the Cocodery. They do me what they touch you on the Hong Zawan in Yomari. And Jokin, like neat horse, or take a like nickeries. They were Sancho Sambanyomo, but Yomi, but Saos on Donna, they saw it. They said Sancho Samba, the Yomo, but Yoma, Yoma Chila, the Yaporis, that day. There is an long law, you saw. Oh, he saw. Do you salap that? You do you less or jibber someone, Dode of the young kid, Shiba Cartier was, that they can have that do a lot, hundred that do the Dojigala, do the Lada, Dode, Tandarata, Lasso Banana, Sanjik Song, the young Yibana, Terence of Peta, Pezekila, Mambo, already that they don't pay Mambo, do the thing, do you. Lord Chena, do say at it. Something. Zaba Children, say body, or Delatin and Zaba Chungron, say body, tell a yard and you. ngone ore sanje check song da je usare sa
Nika do.
re nika yo la
Jonyo.
chung nika
Nyom shem me. Nyom de ya.
re te ore nga so ta
Doka sama ke pache nyom ya.
oh ya te ta se ta nam jor ko rap sir ta nam du dong ge te da gang le song wa ye za sin to de ji ne se ta to ji ge ju ba se ya de yo go nam jor to ji ju ba se ya de zo ba chen ran sen ren zen le sir de dem bar ma do ba ta chu rang sem nje ren zen de ma do sir ge nje se ya de me wa de ta chu ta dun ju ren zen ko ngo de te be jian ga ne sa nje se ya de ngo de de jik ta de nje jie sa ge yor nje se ya de ne sa nje se ya de song sa song yor ga yang ma ni wa za chu ru ko de yimi za zhe ge da wa ge ren zen ju ngo de te be jian ga ne sa de dang bo jie sa ba dang ga sa ta ma ne sa nje se ya de ni ya ma de de ta chu 다 던지게 타추고 맞아 타추 댕토도 타추고 맞아 타마주는 양철을 그래 에 양자적이 나와서는 정철차리 박차니 봐자 야차 야 디박차데 아 양양적이 나와서 박차니 야차 또 피가 말했다 무슨 말이 디도 타추고 타추 세야 돼 네 타추 렌자지 뭐데 저 점보랑서 대비세 전제가 점보 때문에 남도가 남상케베 레도 동하르게 저 저건 자와네 해게 땡이 양도 포데 예데 녀마 콩이 쳐버는 요로세 땡이 양설이 녀몽 이시스 쳐서 보다 담배요 땡이 바디 양설로는 땡이 바디 용조데 양리로 배자게 접점 못하래 봐 송어로 이제 내는 zon나 이제 얘데 이제 다른 통나 다른 요로서 이제 나라서 라이 바하고는 이제 라 이제 내는 zon나 예담상 이제 요로리다 도르지 교는 이제 갑요 가면 제모는 요 이제 난전도 뛰잖아 난전은 마대는 저탄 이제 나다 저저 그 뭐네 드리게 삼나 땅거 마도 여러시 니장 총철마 줘봐 남절반 랭게 동괴 치도 고도 폼보 노용제 초소 메데 디장 총 지우 마담나 디 남절 받담 폼보 초소 땅 거들이 다 마절로 되러 다 폼보 초소 땅 좋아서 거들 수가 수천 사제 ቸር체 송지 쪽게 자외 저 수제 ቸር체 찍래가 아마 좀 줄로인 송 다때 찌고 다 뭐고 폼보 노용제 초소 make them but losing the power then 자라서 그 세하면 가르지 로이 갑데면 와 디나게 마 요요 폼보 파 요요 또 갑데 쳐 말에 폼보 진데 겨 단제 폼보 진데 폴라 다진데 로 링기 땅나서 나 세야 파 요요도 데데도 양 컨트랙게 님지 또바 더자 메바 경효 냥된 직부 더트다스 님지 또바 데 마젤라 롱게 드 야라 토케도다 토메도 님지도다 갑루도 야 님지도다 토소 님지데 단전 토 다 단전의 파메 다 두주나 양조로 거 두주나 베 샤사사 찬통사 짱게 니 두주라 가데요 말이야 아메리카 두주 가데요 마 플리스가 송도 저라서 짜고 말이야 당가 저그 두주나 짱게 요리 최장요 홍보지 사리겐 거로 진짜 뉴라데 이제 용게 파효데 최장 장장의 전화 상기 망보 램거리다 안자 요리 더소다 컨택네와 더주도 판요 란제 잡고 조사서 강가를 뜨미더 냐르 총철제 롱남 차치당 추치당 견네 파칭무럽게 조던 요로서 다데르 데데 란제 조상데는 결혼선데는 란제 견도 로지도 사자오리 부도 망보 진조사 라조산 제조사 라프로고는 파 로사레가 사자로들이야 다다 존님 방세요 판카로들이야 승복을 제바 디니 파디 랑가데 백 스트라모 랑가는 판난즈자 프로그램 레벨 라프로고도 승복을 공부하는데요 라프로고 승복하게 통되게 nen거를 뭐지 드네 겨 바로도 드네 승복을 공부하는데 된데 야사님 상도바를 저할 때 조사니 승복을 공부하는데 하는 거 공부하는데 then drain Dori zone or Tati Mata logic Gini. Tedage Jitopta Namjorpa Tame Donge Pamare Hibes, Namjorpa Tamak, that data Tawak Chorange Tav Denga, Tav Marta, Tavake Nongarta, no soke, Danze Kumatamna, Namjopa Tamak, that Yom Chongalega. Trapo lega ta repakan nongar ke lega le mataba nyom chong teda ke jitop da namjor ba thamji teda ke jitop da namjor ba thamji dongke phamar khipa samjing je tra de ji jen si ta dongke tham je pha yin ma yin nying ji sam ne jitop ka kap so ta de samba de nyi je tra de ji je teda sanje la go bar ser sanje go be se de nge Tambichu Jokayen, Zonkayen, Satsombaran de Sanchokasem, Labar Jela, Dagin Jeva Tani, Davi Ginji, the Dagin Yabada, Tipachimbolana, Tani, Tipachimbo, and so Tipachimbo, certain Ponam Jachimbo, Tapa, Tap time, Yan Lama Control, and Ning Tapan, local, David dance, it doesn't more Jachimbo, so Namjet, so Jachimbo, Sabanamjet, Donge, Nyerche Tada, Shavar and Yorte, Debade, Junam Yaya, Sancho, Samba, Ket of Ding. Do ye Tabarka Chopperman, the Tombernet, Simply on some of the chicken egg said that they kiss a lot gene, Hipataros on the Dosibas on
Some don't be duty to you, Satsi, Saga, the Dotopa. We left off this morning, or early this afternoon, we completed the first of the 4 sections on dealing with the removal of specific obstacles. The first section was external, which means physical, the physical obstacle of sickness. And now we turn to the second, which is the internal obstacle of maras. And first in Guru Rinpoche's words, to remove the impediments that are maras and obstructors. Great maras and obstructors are of 3 types: male, female, and non-binary. But no matter how they may appear, they do not exist. Seeing external demons is like mistaking your own shadow for a carnivorous spirit. What is happening is that your mind's nature, the unity of lucidity and endiness, is being reflected back at you externally. But because you misapprehend that nature through coarse dualism, through a coarse division of things into subject and object, that reflection of your nature appears to you in that way, so as demons. And then, through a fixated apprehension of yourself as the target of those supposed demons, you give rise to all sorts of anxiety. But if you examine these things to the point of resolution, you will expose your own lie, or literally cave in your own house of lies, pacifying all suffering and causing happiness to arise spontaneously from within you. If that doesn't do it, if that doesn't eradicate the appearance of demons, then offer your aggregates as a feast. Let go of fixation on a self and go to sleep or lie down wherever you want without fear. In post-meditation, cultivate bodhicitta and make aspirations. When someone is engaged in the accomplishment of freedom, their engagement naturally brings up the antithesis or opposite of freedom. So therefore, when people are engaged in the accomplishment of freedom or liberation, they experience external entities, or they may experience external entities that they call maras of various types, basically, which they will classify, depending upon how powerful they seem to be, as either gods, which doesn't necessarily mean they're benevolent, or spirits. In short, all sorts of personified obstructors. Now, in general, in Buddhism as a whole, maras are defined as classified as four. First of all, this term mara means killer. It's related to mrit, which means death. So amrit, amrita, means immortality. And so mara means a killer or death itself. But there are four types. One is the kleshas, your mental afflictions. And the way in which your mental afflictions are maras is obvious and was also explained in detail in the previous section. So the first mara is the klesha mara. And then the second mara is our aggregates, our skandhas. And because the five aggregates serve as the basis for a misapprehension of a personal self, they, so to speak, bedevil us. They are maras or obstructors on the path to awakening. In other words, they are what we have to deal with or overcome. The third one is the Rit Mara, or the Mara that is the death. And that is, most broadly speaking, the simple mortality. The fact that we're going to die. And by extension, it can be that which causes our death. And then the fourth one is Devaputra Mara, or the Mara that is a child of the gods, which just means a god, of the gods' family. And that is, in the narrow sense, a god or spirit that is tempting away from the path. And in the broader sense, our addiction to pleasure. So in Dharma in general, those are the four types of maras. Now, most practitioners are aware that their kleshas, their aggregates, and their mortality are not external entities. So most of us don't tend to externalize those. The ones that we tend to fixate on as external threatening beings are the Devapusha Mara. And they can be experienced by us as major maras or mara bosses that have entourages, such as all sorts of malevolent or threatening beings, most of which would be among the 6 states classified as pretas. So we experience all sorts of non-human beings, not humans or animals, that we call spirits or demons or maras, that we think of as external to ourselves and threatening. Now, you might say, Lama said at this point, that this is less of a problem in the West and in modern times than it is in other cultures or than it was in the past. But this still occurs. People still, even in the modern day, even in highly developed technological cultures, still say things like, that's a spooky place. I don't like going there. Or they'll often simply say, there's something there. I know it. There's something weird about that place. I don't like that. And you have constant tales in your own culture. You may call them poltergeists or all sorts of things, but you certainly talk about it. And many people believe in ghosts and spirits and so on, some of which you perceive as threatening. Another way of dividing what we call maras, or we could simply say demons, is into outer, inner, and secret. In which case, the outer maras are those external spirits, such as all the different sorts of demons and spirits and so on that various civilizations have enumerated. And then the inner demons, which we recognize as our own thoughts, our own doubts, our own anxiety. And then the secret demon, which is perhaps the greatest problem for practitioners, which is vanity or arrogance about signs of accomplishment. And that is something that we need to actively be on the watch for, be aware of. Because Lama said, if you're engaged in a form of practice that includes in its instruction descriptions of indications, experiential indications that the practice is working, it's almost impossible for you, when you experience those indications, whether it's dreams or visions or psychological changes, whatever they are, it's almost impossible that you not feel something. about that. And as soon as you feel something, like it's working, I'm on the right track, that's Mara. It's true, you are on the right track, but it's also Mara that you're thinking about, which is why that one is very, very hard to avoid. Now, these different sorts of outer, inner, and secret Maras each have 6 varieties, and so there's 18 and so on, according to the Precious Sutras. But basically, all of these different Maras can be summarized into 3. Male, female, and non-binary. Male Maras or demons are the display of your anger. Female, and this is irrespective of your orientation or gender, female Maras or demons are the display of your desire. And non-binary Maras are the display of your apathy. So they are actually the display of your 3 poisons in the form of apparent male, female, and non-binary spirits. And so regardless of how powerful or minor spirits may seem to be, they must be one of those 3. And they're not necessarily only threatening. They might be very attractive, and they might seem to be helping you. So no matter how they appear, no matter whether they seem to be helpful or harmful, and no matter what types of apparitions they subject you to, one thing about them is absolutely true and must be decided, and that is that they don't exist. Not even a bit. They are not real. They don't truly exist. The appearance of demons is groundless. So why do we see them? And we all see them. Every culture sees them. People feel them, whether you see them or not. Some people say they see ghosts, they see dead people, other people don't, and so on. Why do we see these things? We experience spirits, demons, ghosts, elementals, whatever you want to call them, for the same reason that we might mistake our own shadow out of the corner of our eye and think that it's a carnivorous spirit pursuing us. So always the feeling of there's something there is you're experiencing your own shadow. Well, if that's true, then what is the actual nature? If they're not really truly existent, what is their nature? Shantideva describes the true nature of all demons in the Bodhisattva when he says, all the violence and harm that is inflicted in this world, all the danger, all the fear, and all the suffering, as much of it as there is, all of it, without exception, comes from fixation on a self. If you understand that, ask yourself, what is that great demon going to do to me next? There is only one demon that we need to be aware of, and that is our own fixation on the self. Why is it demonic? It's demonic because it's wrong. Fixation on something that doesn't exist is a mistake. And if your whole life, your whole existence is based on a mistake, that is demonic. So, the root of all appearances of demons is your mind. And especially your mind's misapprehension of a self. Well, if your mind is not a self, if the apprehension of a self is wrong, is incorrect, and therefore demonic, what is correct? What is your mind really? Your mind has always been just what it is right now, which is a unity of cognitive lucidity and emptiness. In other words, your mind is an emptiness that knows or experiences. That's all it is. But while it's easy for us to say that, we don't recognize it. We don't recognize or even experience our minds that way. We seem to experience our minds as this or that, as a transitory self. It's transitory because it's constantly changing. One moment we think of our mind as this, our identity is this, and the next moment it's that. And all of those things are wrong because your mind isn't any of that. Your mind is just emptiness that knows. That's all it is. The problem is that when we misapprehend our own mind, the very intensity, the very brilliance, the very lack of limitation of that knowing emptiness is projected outward by us. And seeing it, because of its intensity, as external to ourselves, we think of it as an external object. And in fact, this is the origin of all appearances of external objects. So the first step is we fail to recognize. Our minds fail to recognize themselves. Therefore, in the absence of recognition, they experience their own intensity as other. And the false identification of the mind's lucidity as other leads to a corresponding false identification of what experiences or seems to experience that other as a self. Up to that point, ignorance was passive, but at this point, through the projection of other, there becomes a full-fledged imputation of a self. And the two build on each other so that the intensity of our projection of other intensifies the projection of the fixation on self. the intensity of the fixation on self further intensifies the projection of other, so that the entire process becomes coarser and coarser and grosser and more apparently solid, until it becomes demonic. The lucidity of our mind turns into anger. The emptiness of our mind turns into desire. And this is something that we can experience. When your mind becomes extremely sharp and lucid, for some reason it's very easy to get angry. And so on. We all experience this. This is an ongoing process. This is not something arcane or primordial that is not ongoing. We're doing this all the time. And if we happen to experience the non-differentiation, the non-duality of the mind's lucidity and emptiness, we experience that as stupidity, as a stupor with the affect of apathy. And those are the source of the often spoken of 84,000 types of pleasure. All of these are the mistaking of our own reflection, our own projection, as existent external objects. So, to summarize this, all of this can be said very, very simply. Your mind is Mara. Your mind is the obstructor. And again, this is not arcane, this is something we can experience. We obstruct ourselves. We bedevil ourselves. As has been pointed out, Lama said again and again, by great masters, including Jetsun Milarepa, Padmasambhava, countless others. Now, so that is the true nature of the inner obstacle that we call maras. It's just our mind. But what causes it to flare up? What causes us to become afflicted, especially afflicted by maras? Diligence. If you're diligent in the path, your mind, Mara, will attack you. It's common sense, right? You know, if you're trying to overcome your own crap, your crap is going to try to fight you on it. We know this. This is not new. You know, it's in fancy language here, but we know this. If you're not doing anything, if you're not trying to get better, you're not going to be attacked. See, this is one of those things with Dharma. The bad news is always the good news, and the good news is always the bad news. It depends on how you look at it. Especially when you get to Manjushri, here we come. So from the sutra, Manjushri is kind of the king of paradox and whatnot. So from the sutra of the magical displays of Manjushri, says, whether it's Manjushri speaking here or the Buddha speaking here, it doesn't matter, because if it's the Buddha talking, Manjushri put him up to it. And if it's Manjushri talking, the Buddha is in charge. So it's, it's kind of the same thing. But Maras arise for bodhisattvas. And understand that Maras arise from bodhisattvas because of their diligence. Why? What would Maras do if someone weren't diligent? Their lack of diligence is enough. Why would a Mara bother? There's nothing to attack. So in other words, in a sense, Mara is a good sign. It means you're being diligent. Mm-hmm. You still got to be careful, but it's a good sign. So that's the cause of affliction by Mara. You're being diligent in the path. And then there's the process. And what is the actual process? And process here, Nyelen, means the proximate event. What is the trigger? We have trigger. Trigger. In English, we say trigger for this. What triggers an attack of Mara? This is getting more and more familiar to folks, right? Because we have always, throughout beginningless time, fixated on and craved our own reification of something that has never existed, the self, because we've been so invested in grasping at something that isn't there, the slightest thing. That's what Jamgon Lodro Thaye says, because we're so fixated on grasping at something that isn't there, because we're so uptight, we're so tense, slightest thing. And we know that. I mean, I do. I don't know about the rest of you.
Me too.
And what happens is the slightest thing can spark an event. And Lama said, to the point of true psychosis, we're not just talking eschatologically here. We're also talking here about mental illness. He said, I have met many people who've said to me that the slightest thing can just push them into a psychotic state. And they really see stuff, they hear stuff. And they may know that the stuff they see and hear is not there, but they're still seeing it and hearing it, and it's driving them nuts. That happens. We know that happens. But the root cause of that, what makes us so easily triggered, is that to begin with, we're rigidly fixated on something that doesn't exist. Our entire course of existence is based on a lie. And that's what makes us so easily triggered. So therefore, about this, in the sutra requested by Sky Treasury, it says, and this must be the Buddha speaking, it's just as if there's a hole in a wall, the wind is going to get in. Sooner or later, the wind is going to get in. In the same way, whatever defect, we would say, whatever crack exists in the mind of a yogi is going to be the avenue for the entrance of Mara. So your weak spot, your crack, your defect, that's where Maras are going to, so to speak, enter. Therefore, the Buddha concludes in the quotation, bodhisattvas need to be without the defect of kleshas. It's easy for him to say.
Let's get right on that.
Now, so far we've heard that the reason we're attacked by Mara is because we rigidly fixate on something that doesn't exist. It's strange to get the giggles about this, but it is kind of giggle worthy if you think about it that way. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, right? I mean, it's really like, it's so stupid. And that's the problem. So the reason is that, and the cause is our fixation that makes us so tense that we're triggered by the slightest thing. And the avenue of the appearance of Mara is whatever our weak spot is. But how do we know if we're being attacked by Maras? In other words, how do we know when we're having a Mara episode? To learn, this will make you laugh, to learn in detail about the signs of being blessed by Mara. Doesn't mean blessed in a good way. And what Maras make us do when we're blessed by them and so on. It's important that you read extensively in the sutras and other texts that describe this in detail. In other words, Jamgon Lodro Thaye doesn't want to take the time to, doesn't want to distract us from the text that far. We go on. I mean, he doesn't want to go on that aside. However, Lama said, it's tricky. Learning all about obstacles and Maras can help, but can also make it worse. Because if the problem is hope and fear, and you learn about all these things, all these spirits and apparitions and types of weird mental states that, if you learn about everything that can go wrong, and you are starting to understand that when things go wrong, it's coming from your mind, then you're actually getting closer to things going wrong. So from one point of view, it would be better not to learn about them. So it really depends on how you look at it. However, whether you know in detail about the varieties of Maras or not, and what they make you do and so on, they are all included in your mind's failure to recognize itself, your mind's absence of recognition of itself. Which brings us to the final topic of this section, which is how to get rid of it. How do you exorcise Maras? How do you dispel the internal obstacle of Maras? Now we saw in the preceding section, when it was dealing with sickness, there was the way for the best yogis, the way for intermediate yogis, and the way for the least yogis. But all three were pretty much heading to the same place. So again, in the same way, here, for the best practitioners, the way to overcome all Maras once and for all is resolution. And resolution means that when there is recognition of your mind's nature, that recognition is not simply left as an event that might last or might not, might reoccur or might not, but a resolution that once and for all, no matter what, you know what your mind really is. And that resolution is the way that the best practitioners overcome Mara. In a sense, we could say that this resolution has two steps to it. The first step is to resolve once and for all that no matter what maras or obstructors appear to you, they all come from your mind. That the origin of all maras is your mind. So the first aspect of resolution is resolution of the origin of all maras, that they come from the mind. And the only way you're going to gain that resolution, Lama said, is through proof. You have to prove it to yourself in experience. You're not going to believe it simply because you hear it or read it. And that's important to understand. Lama said we could read the 17 or 18 tantras of the very secret innermost heart essence of the great perfection. We could go on, we could read all of the 6,400,000 stanzas that constitute the scriptures of the great perfection that were spoken by Vajrasattva to Prahe Vajra. We could read all that, but reading all of that, if we didn't have resolution, would have no effect whatsoever immediately on our ability to overcome the attacks of Mara. Of course, there's the benefit in hearing the teachings that we spoke of this morning. But that benefit is something that has to ripen or accrue over time. It's not going to be an immediate fix. The only immediate fix is resolution. The second aspect of that resolution, the first is the resolution of the origin of Maras, being your own mind. And the second is your resolution of the non-existence of Maras. That therefore, they appear to you externally in a manner that does not correspond to their true nature. In other words, although they appear to be separate from your mind, they're not. If they come from your mind, to put it simply, they are your mind. Nothing can come from your mind and then be not your mind. So, regardless of where you see them, how you see them, how many of them you see, they are just your mind. And then, if you look at the nature of your identification of apparitions as demons or spirits, you'll see that the apparitions themselves never truly arise. In other words, the individual apparitions don't have an origin story. They don't remain. They don't actually have a duration. And they don't cease in the sense of the cessation of an apparition, meaning it's not going to come back. If they were beings and they died, then they wouldn't come back in that way. So if you resolve that demons are your mind and therefore do not exist, then you have caved in or demolished the house of lies that we construct surrounding apparitions. And you've also closed the door to any worry or thoughts of future demons arising. You have pacified all hope and fear surrounding them, together with the suffering that the hope and fear bring. And this is taking ill omens as good luck. Typically, we think of ill omens, as ominous. And no one, except us, would ever say the ominous is by definition good luck, good fortune. But we say that. But you can only say that if you actually experience the absence of hope and fear. As we saw earlier when we all began to get the giggles, ominous, that which is ominous, is good luck. Ominous apparitions of Mara are very good fortune. They're very good signs because they indicate diligence. When you, in that way, destroy the barrier or wall between the ominous and the auspicious, an unconditioned and indestructible happiness will arise, like the sun rising inside your heart. Now, if that's not enough, if doing that, if you can't overcome apparitions of Mara in that way, then you would employ the means of an intermediate yogi, where you reverse our usual way of doing things. So reversal here means instead of seeking to banish or exorcise demons, you summon them, you beckon them, you welcome them, you invite them. And instead of trying to protect yourself from them, you feed yourself to them. You offer your aggregates, especially your physical aggregate, your form aggregate, your body, as a desirable feast to those spirits. Now, this obviously refers to the great tradition of Machi Ladri. And in describing the principle underlying this, she said, better than 100 or even 1,000 protect me, is one, consume me, destroy me. And you discard all ownership of your physical body and whatever else you cling to, feeding it to these spirits as easily as you would toss leftover old food into the garbage. And to progress further in that, to ensure that you have no anxiety and no worry about the apparitions of demons, no matter what happens, then you go to the charnel grounds, and you not only go to them, but you go to sleep in them. Now, Lama said to make sense out of this, you have to understand that a charnel ground is different from a cemetery. Cemetery is a nice place. It's landscaped, and the corpses are out of sight. They're buried under the ground or in big stone buildings. And it's actually very, very safe because it's guarded by the police. There are signs about when you can be there and when you can't. And, you know, it's quite tranquil. It's not very threatening. So that a charnel ground, like the ones we have in Tibet, he said, are dangerous. They are actually dangerous because the bodies are everywhere, and therefore things that eat bodies are there. Wolves, jackals, and all sorts of other animals, wild animals are there. So if you go to sleep in a charnel ground, you could get eaten. I mean, there's not that much difference between a dead body and a sleeping body, except the sleeping body is fresher, hopefully. And so, you know, it wouldn't be that unreasonable for the jackals or wolves to snack on you. So going to such a place and sleeping, or going to a place that you know to be haunted. And now this is an interesting, it mentions crossroads. All over the world, people think of crossroads as haunted places. We find this in the legends of all cultures that have roads. So haunted crossroads, places that are known. Here we sell tickets to these places. They have them, but you've got to buy tickets. So and they don't let you sleep there.
Of course.
They don't let you sleep there. Or you actually, no, there is one. There are bed and breakfasts. You can go. There are haunted ones. It's really expensive.
Okay.
But anyway, so go to a haunted place and just let go. Accept the fact that, you know, you may make it through the night, you may not. And so if in that way you can synchronize apparitions and resolution, which is called the synchronized completion of apparitions. That means you've undergone all forms of apparitions and been able to deal with them through resolution. Then that is a way of transforming obstacles into the best city or the greatest city. And then in post-meditation and for the yogis of the least ability who cannot do either of those two things, then there are other steps you can take. The first is to recognize that if there are, so let's say you can't resolve the non-existence of demons, that they're the projection of your mind. So therefore, if there are external beings who are demons, pretas primarily, some devas, but mostly pretas, if they really exist the way, to the extent that we exist, they are sentient beings and therefore have been your parents countless times. That's for sure. And so cultivate fierce, intense love and compassion for them. And particularly focus your generation of bodhicitta on them. So in other words, think that I wish to achieve Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings, but first and foremost, or especially, these spirits or demons, and so on, of which I am afraid. And then practice taking and sending, focusing primarily on those spirits, and then make Mahayana aspirations as vast as possible, connected with them. Other things that will facilitate this greatly are a sincere entrustment of your well-being, even your survival, to your Guru and the three jewels. So a level of faith and devotion sufficient to the point where you can say, you know what I need. If it be better that these demons eat me, let them have me. If it be better that I get sick and die, may I get sick and die. If it be better that I be well, may I be well. And also the accumulation of as much merit as you can. Those things will also pacify the apparitions of demons, maras, and obstructors. And then this section closes with a quotation. Jamgon Kongtrul Lodro Thaye quotes from the Noble Collection Sutra, which, and this identifies four aspects of the path of a bodhisattva that are specifically focused on in practices of severance and so on. There are four causes, the quotation says, by which bodhisattvas become wise, powerful, and unassailable by the four maras. These four ensure that a bodhisattva cannot be swayed or moved by maras. They are, first, to remain in emptiness. Second, to never mentally abandon any sentient being. Third, to do what you say you're going to do. And fourth, to receive the blessings of the Sugatas, of the Buddhas.
Nazo. That is.
Then once again, Chokgyur Lingpa, some Goran Dishi, somewhere you are.
That is. Then that day, don't know here, Narang don't know here. Nagan didn't say you. Mamma, Dokan and Lawson, they law Chatan, was a mark to the gods. Raprogonima, Yongsala, pet, trap and punk, tram or Yara Progon Rosar. That they had a Jalamians, that any muscles, Sudoden Ropogamari, Sudoini, Nimapa, sunrise, sunset, rain, my Pachan Rokish down. Mamma Merrick and a song. Sina got the mirrors, days are called Messi de Sunny, Jake could jabble and yarn. Jade cock jabble and yarn. Tam Judita, the Tam history, could jabble and yarn. Cocked Serzon, Horenzu, Kurjosen, then the pandos are the church in Babacol, Chopara Conrojo, and Jade Cork, Chonagan, Chopara, Markle, and Chona Karate on the tree lamb, the real. They call Yinda Kayahama on Narang Metzetela. So Jayopa, nor Ya Jayopa, Choragan, Trickle, Naturam, Cortemsing a Kirkin land, the cock is existed. On Trickery, Naturan Sanini, Natura Ya Jayoso, Choran Nayop said. The Georgia, the course on the senior Molandit and you call Kanban Salola Yaja, Tendrike, Tanja is of course Jatam, Portin Bajava, Tambio. Then tell the Tabar pick up there or is say the trial, the name Chutin or the Chutin or Yanga, and Muju, that and the Satin Borizo. Then about Konaba Yanga Rizo. Then I go my gelatinizing Rogado, something around I the rich candy and some that day, there is not just on the Duze and what the Tokyu, that Tokyu. One air training and dress at the candy and the rich even the Mena some. Then the name wasn't seen the Chipa Jongari, the Dawape upon the Nankape Tambo, the Karma Pe Mambo, the stars. They got Deja, they get Sina in Chakam, the Deja Tambo, they stars, and Deja, Paja, Chin Chitu Tambo, Paja Samba, remember the socialists that are broken Martane on the Kamas Nikatsangas and Rocker. Teni Yan Rosaril and Sina Mala, Teni Yan Rosarilla, to treat him to treat the pay. Tramoins, then the Tama wrote in Yanker, Rodu, Kamasunchas and Rogo. Kamasuncha, then you are a program you are Chizuchis and Rogo. Tanga, then the Sinama Kayakari, Lande Mountain Dockery, and Sinama Sama Kojo is Yat and then Sinama Maranki, Joseph to Truna. Shoki Pater, Chizu Samba, Yapa, Samarika the day, Ka, Koyatsoyamado, then the Tarnichus. Then the CJ program the combatant of the Chitu and Rover programs on the Hoking House of one so good in the Soya. Then Kayan Toyam, the deck, then I'll say, I think one some of the time hit on the method, now Trava some thin Rimato, no border, Narana Partizamke, Yosamari, some Tanda in the Jews, Nandra, they'll say, Nandra, me what you raise. Jay Nini Roland, I show you Drakpo Rosaya de la Machas and the Corp, the Bay, Rosaya de la Bay, the Roland Landro, the Tibet, Puni, Roland, Lord Rotama Landro, the big Puni, Yanatao here, the Roland Jondros, the Roland. Then Nimatel, the onions, onion in your credit, onion lugging cutter, in your credit, Koramikan. Then Momambo Kora Lajeton, Nimatel Magic. Large danger chingle, Sinama, chingle, copy, Chango Toson, or Chango Toson, then Loja Amica, called Soja Tomason. Call Loja Thompson.
Loja, sorry.
Loja and Lamsan, Timothy Thompson. Chango Toson, Soja Tomason. They call Thompson, and Nisa Thompson, Chesson. Then I'm making a yard whether it is or rotting a nigger double job called Ropa Majing. They never tarring the pay. Taring Bodlem, Taring the never. Then I get that double jam there, Yaposico, the Madon Kamari something. Kora Chango Toso, the Chango Tot, the Chango Tosea, and Sari Lojaco, the Talome,
Kavari, Chango Tos.
Punity, and the chicken, I'm in Canary. In Canary. Then Gomajella, they wrote the Kayosa Yomari, double Yomari, double many, the Koran so Pan Nanandon, Magimba. 저 용나 코라니 파차자로서 나보 용. 되네 아니 그 로데 나랑기 니사나 야서 미니도 람르레레 코네도 좀 컨제 나람제 오르 민간나 대마도 뭐 코네 민간나 요거레 다바 민간 민바 민바 민간나 나라니 아파트먼트 람니마도 요 ram chekdenate te rod yas ngak ni sana ngak ni sa corner ni yas te nga ti jin ya ni ko khamba chung chung 아니 다 저한테는 이걸 또 건데 대 답을 잡는 마도 나라니 저거 말이 양 책임에 달래 없는 저거 말이 간단히 대 답을 잡고 신는 더 화다 더 뉴도 아니 대 그 뮤직 그 나다도 그 간데 니프리 짜서
그거 같이 제 대가서
왜로 총총을 바자로 저 쫄거든 그 유능이네 로 총총 아니 나나 니프 말이 자마 다니든 강가리야 니든 되는 니디야 니 거기마다 건치나 돼 참자 책 뭐요 세그 세컨드 도론데 아때네 단 지나마데 대 거기를 돼 타를 키워서 다 코트 간랑이 아사마리 난사마리 되는 로 총총이 바자 지도책사도 빼니 토보코스 되는 야니세야 니세인데 거다는 야견도 자나 되는 남랑데도 제정마다 아니 파상 안에서 아니 가리에서 로 라망게서 로 라망가 아니 되는 비차에서 저리만 하자 하죠자 그거 complete 개개도 강고 말이 대처럼 단 레이사리 어 말이다 나로 샤마 섬사 더보드 말럽거든 저한테는 이거래서 내 사냥모데 내가 돈 받아 돈 야다 돈 받아 돈 되니 샤마 섬사는 아니에요 되니 나타가면 되니 로데 저랑게 살게 거서 되 더블레드야 살게 돼서 들어놓고 되게 차상 쳤어 스카보드 내즈에 되니 디츠죠 로다 마다래서 로세야 돼 랑게 메완 드레스야 돼 로단 데소도 좀 메완다고 타치스 드루도는 타다데 추로도 파 센데페 야보레거든 데부터 페 존도 센데 데리 되니 서방아 안에래도 서머트리니 니로 데데 보글한데 서자글한데 서체 누바체우르 상가 앞기스리데 라데모도 플리소게 can you go home the pub now
which one the one ngarangi te sa ke chela
제랑게 저 파고 the church mar보 자고 this
the Lutheran
되나니 데링 데노리아 다들 church
yeah but could you make it a night in a Catholic cemetery? That's what I do.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, that's a joke.
Okay. Yeah.
That's funny. So Lama said just to this issue of resolution and proof. Give you a couple of stories from my own experience. He said, there's a big rock. When they say rock, it actually means a mountain that is just rock because it's so high. So there's a big rock about an hour away from Rockford Monastery, and people are afraid to go there or remain there after sunset. They'll go there during the day, all right, but no one wants to be there after sunset because there's a local story that a guy went there at night and was grabbed by a demon that began to carry him off, and then he made a deal with the demon. I said, no, well, what can I give you that you won't? So you won't kill me. And he said, bring me 100 yaks, and then I won't kill you. And then the story goes, he did the next day, and he was like, oh. There's also a large stupa built by Nyingpo Rinpoche on that mountain. Anyway, people are afraid of it, so I wanted to go. I wanted to go for, if you put it in the fancy sense, I wanted to gain resolution, the non-existence of Maras. To put it plainly, I was curious. I wanted to know what I would see. It's like, I hear about demons and stuff like that. I like to lay my eyes on them. So the night that I went there was full moon, so it was very, very bright. And I was there through till about between 1 and 3 a.m. And then there was half an hour away from there was a charnel room. And I thought, nothing was happening. where I was. So I thought, I'll go to the trial ground. Maybe I'll see some action there. And I stayed there, until about, between 3 and 4, sometime close to dawn. And then there was nothing. Nothing happened. I didn't see anything. So then I walked back to Rockpool, which took an hour, and they said, so, what did you see? And I said, I didn't see anything. There's nothing to see there. But people who say they see things there must have been hallucinating or imagining. There was no, I experienced no obstacle or impediment or mishap as a result of going there. And ever since then, I haven't been afraid of haunted places that are supposed to be haunted. So that's my haunted place story. And now I have a corpse story. In Tibet, we're very nervous about dead bodies because there are many accounts of revenants. People say zombie, but zombie particularly is a Haitian term, and it's considered cultural appropriation to use it. So it's better to say the term revenant, which means a corpse that rises. They even made a movie called The Revenant. So, it's a term that we should use. So in other words, corpses that get up and walk around and do stuff and kill people and shit like that. So we're nervous about that. And so as a kid and as a teenager, I was not comfortable around corpses. I was nervous around them because I was afraid that they would, get up and mess with me. Now, my grandfather, as most of you know, was among his other attributes, was a physician. And he was taking care of a patient in a hospital near Chokgyur. And I was assisting him, and the long and the short of it is we were unable to save the guy, and he died. But there was nobody to take custody of his body, and the body had to go somewhere until somebody, relatives or somebody, came to get it. So now we had 2 rooms. He had a room and I had a bedroom. And so my grandfather said to me, well, there's just no 2 ways about it. That we're gonna have to put that corpse in your bedroom. You're gonna have to sleep with the corpse tonight. And I was 18 or 19, and I didn't like that idea at all. And I said, Grandpa, I won't be able to sleep. If that corpse, and we're talking about a cubicle, right? We're not talking about, a suite at the Ritz-Carlton here. We're talking about a cubicle. He said, if that corpse is in that tiny room with me, I am not going to get a wink of sleep. And my grandfather says, oh, don't worry about it, you'll be fine. Just bring the corpse there, just, go to sleep. So I had no choice. And for a long time through the night, I was unable to go to sleep. Because every time I started to doze off, I would think, did that thing just move? Did it move? I thought I saw it move. And that kept on waking me up. And I could not get to sleep until about 1 hour before dawn. And then, I was young enough and exhausted enough that I slept deeply for 1 hour. And then it was dawn. And I got up and I met my grandfather. And he asked me, he said, did it move? And I said, no. No, it didn't move. He said, of course not. They don't really move. And he laughed. And he said, yeah. He said, that's good. Also, we're going to have to keep it 3 more days because they're not going to get here for 3 more days. So, yeah, you're going to have to stay here with the corpse in your room for 3 more days. Well, after the first night, I was fine with it. You know, I was cool with the corpse. And then because by that point, I was so used to the corpse, then my grandfather said, all right, well, I guess then we should let you be the person to cut it up. Now, this is not medical dissection. This is sky burial, where, you know, you cut up the corpse into edible bits so that the various animals can get at the good stuff and so on without, you know, it's a courtesy. And so I did that. I cut that out. So that, to me, ever since then, I haven't had a problem with corpses. I've been, you know, okay, I'm no longer frightened of corpses. And then the last story I'll tell you is, soon after I came here, I thought, well, you know, I don't think anything much happens in our charnel grounds, but, you know, the West is a pretty strange place. Maybe they have real scary spirits and demons in their cemeteries. So I went and tried to spend the night in, you know, the Lutheran cemetery in the village? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's right near me, anyway. And nothing happened until the police showed up. And then the police said, you can't stay here, you have to go home. So I got up and came home. But aside from the police, there were no demons.
Spirits, Chokgyur Lingpa in China, so yeah, that didn't taking a data draw, Jake drama on the Mora the Lankoma, long the tall long, the young yard, the taking a draw, so then young ma, young one watching on the ma, Jake long the choker park conductor, that taking a pardon, left in the Sormasombo Lebanon. Chicago, Yena, Ohio, and Jerry, Timothy is a chimbo.
We went to one in Florida.
Florida, maybe China.
Yeah, it was
maybe with you.
I remember. Yeah, because I remember I made Crawley go on it.
Oh, that.
I made him do it.
They did it. Who left the document? Some of the Modama song, data, take it.
Then I went to an amusement park. He thought it might be in Illinois or somewhere else. I think it might have been in Florida. But anyway, we were there, and he said, you know, there was a ride through a haunted house where demons came and grabbed you and so on. He said that wasn't very frightening, but the what do we call it? Roller coaster. Now that was scary because they had a roller coaster where you go up slowly and then you get to the top and you would shoot down. And it seemed physically impossible that you were not going to die. It seemed like there was no way of preventing your death. And of course, at a certain point, you also get soaked in water. And then you go up and he said, that was scary. That's scary.
Samba sang thing the same case servatela, Dortima the Jebarkibani, Sonata Tambon Dortibar, and the Zavatsenane, Chepar Tingzing, same case, Singu Nyamson, Donla Madopja, Namba Manga, Jomar Harvitse, Santa thing as a Tamala, Yodamone, Yamnim, Sinki Tamala, this Yonda Koli, the Sahakon Yaboli. Namjorpala, Chepar the Jeep, 땡엔 잔라 냠버죠 버체 감 드바레 셈 촉베 개송웨 대세베 탑 히바나 가르치에테 조탑게 검베 냠도 쫑지 지저장 히럽 로드 히바당 다 소메탑기 진지조 대답에 강사라 쫑다 캐스트션데 다데가서 창만의 연코들이 냠용문의 연코들이 대답에 개침벌이 되어들이 로드니 베답게 대사에 대사마도 냠데 대대라 대사에 대 동단라다 하고 마타르기 진다 게 망보 연코 서버탑 대한 땡엔잖아 문탐베 냠지 게 도마 치게 대단 용의 저 성의 진 게스 여철 람도 땅로소 만도 유자 노르드나 셈 생와다 고바다 핀베냐 너베냐 피누메베냐 성대 대런도 거데 대단더라 대다 동나 딩 랑치도 마더자 긴라 때네 소수 넘버 망가보 로버도 ताना जमजमनी सेम के मेलों द ख्याबते दतर लाम द तावर साओ सोंताते तेने मा साचाते के इसके करवा.
So to begin briefly the next section, we've seen how to deal with the external impediment of sickness and the internal impediment of morals. The third type of impediment, the so-called secret impediment, is, and this is the one that will be, this one will be particularly an issue for us, is mental states themselves that interfere with meditation. So because this is so important for meditators, this is described in two sections, a brief statement and a detailed explanation. First is the brief statement of what we're talking about. Especially how to remove impediments to samadhi or meditation, such as agitation and other disturbances of the mind. And these can consist of torpor, where your mind is sunken, unclear, depressed, or you're physically tired. Wildness, where your mind is either agitated or uncontrollably attracted to an external object or object of mind. And the various meditation experiences. None of these things really exist, Guru Rinpoche says. But nevertheless, they appear to us. In other words, we experience them, and in fact, we experience an unlimited variety. So while these things, he says, do not exist, and are therefore illusory, they nevertheless are manifest illusions, and therefore we need to know how to deal with them. The commentary says, most significant for meditators among obstacles are obstacles to meditation itself, to samadhi or meditative absorption. And often these things are caused by physical conditions within your body, such as drowsiness or other physical conditions that disturb your mind And because they disturb your mind, they interfere with your meditation. So it's important to know how to respond to these, how to get rid of them. And therefore, the Druptok Chegomba Semasuri, Druptok Chegomba Soma, Druptok Chegomba Suri. So there's a quotation that from somebody who's called Chegomba. And Che, of course, can be a family name, like Chitsun Sengye Wongchur, but it doesn't say it's Chitsun Sengye Wongchur. So we don't know who it is. And it says, the Siddha, the meditator of the Che clan, said, and I said, so who's this meditator of the Che clan? Who's this Siddha meditator of the Che clan? He said, it must have been a Siddha. And I said, thank you for that. It says, even though a little bit of experience and realization may arise, if we're lacking in understanding and intelligence, they won't last. They'll be stolen from us by circumstances. So for people who like that, in other words, for people like us, it is extremely important to know how to dispel problems and impediments in meditation. Now, there are lots of different experiences that we can have in meditation that that become impediments. And these impediments can prevent us from progressing and developing more experience. So there are a lot, of course, has been said and written about them. What causes them, what triggers them, how they impede meditation, and how to bring them on the path, and so on. But if it's all summarized, basically it comes down to this. There are 5 things that occur in meditation. Torpor, which includes all forms of mental dullness, sleepiness, depression, and so on. Excitement, which includes anything pleasant or unpleasant that distracts you or agitates your mind, distracting you from meditation. Beneficial experiences, harmful experiences, and experiences that are neither beneficial nor harmful. And none of these 5 things that can happen, these 5 things include everything that can happen in meditation. And none of these things are real. They're not real because they're purely circumstantial. They're caused by their respective triggers, physical or otherwise. While they therefore are not real and are ephemeral, they do arise. And they arise suddenly and can become sudden impediments to progress. So they are like the appearance of illusory reflections in the mirror of your mind. Just as the reflection in the mirror is not really there, they're not really there, but just as you can see the reflection in the mirror, you do experience them. And therefore, it's important to know what to do.
So that the Jabarhi about the Singuni, the Singwa de Mahi Yorwa, then the Sari, Nibalas Jabarhi Bala, Ni Singwa, Gopa Nyam, the Kesara, Tambo Singwa Saranes, Sambo Singwa Saranes. Sena Luke, Chunzar, Trunkersa. Tata Nankar, they just Sanger Dons, Tade Dada Sum York, Tonda Sum, Repa, Tanchame, Singwas, Tujan the Repa, Tambo, the Sarbori Matavache, Singwan Ni, the Mani, Lake Yonkayori, Sanyamki, Mazeva, Mopat, and Sarinyamki, Yanseng Matabli, Mopat and Tepa, Singwa, the Mopani card, it is Singwa and Yevanyo, Mopat, Tele, Need and driven tapates, tapata, then need to call it. Saying tap some tapita, Charan Dorgan tapte, some girl loot, jumper, jump this, jump de, cha chani, chanza, de lulu chevata, to say you chin the thing channel, the jinga, joncollery, Zalan, Trunkor cups, come up, sas, Tata Nakartu, Hipa Sanger and Donso. Same car, so ne check the second don't so Zomata, say you jim by him, good sub the Tana, Naya Chesser, Dubaso, Sematam Sao, so that take out some Trunkor Jago, the Yoga Jana, Joko, Trunkor Dan, de Dani, Trunkor Yori, Repa Simak, Trunkor Ori, Repa Ma, the Ori, and Tata Nakalaya, the Repangar, Perini Jajina. Yaku no did Malari Baga request Singwasara, Saipe, Peke Jajina, then they take a Tansangi Dondra, Tinting on Yambacho, David, Tata Nankala, the main Nankala, Churki, Terry, Semyanga, Zejido, Zonga, Seju Jipang song, Tatendali, Seju Chia Chata, Chita, Marsa Chili, Toptega, Lobot, Drew Chili. Singwada, Moba Tapason called it. Lobot, you chita, you change said Tintan, Del Dine, young called it. Then you change said Namreta, Marta, Chata, Chanda, there's a pango, the Sutama you change said, Pange, Gozea Sapocum, Sina Gomja, Dundo, saying, Gose on the papi, Jermala, Gom, Gihon Asi. Jermala, doing the Gomla, Tamamasa main and recorded. Chepar Yomarian, public Nana, and get Yoma Villa Yakuri. Young Lapartan de Lomba and the Cable Casarwa, not so another Chepar Saboma Chomari, Ninka Chomari, a Kusapo, Malaripanagi, Jan, Tapchar, Tata Kone. Then he did the Nana, Yamarko, report take Pansangi, request Sarsangi, young call it. That thing, Ravin, request Saina. Tap Tapki, Temna, Repa Tamaka Tapki, Tap the Hirokana, Kansango Goni, Menga Goni, then the Gom Jagora, and the so Gompe, Chokgyur Jaki, you forget Janki, Tap the Hirabri, and so that Gom Yung Janki Tamjilan, the so Chokgyur Yonko, the Gom Chi Tamjila, the Yonko, the Tini, one Gom Ya, Zar, then you call the Yonko and the sort of Pondo quality. Then the dot and Ruji, the Takijila, Tela request Singwa, Sarari, Tat net.
So, the second section here is how to dispel the three types of impediment. And these are torpor, agitation, and experience itself, arising as an impediment. And so we'll finish this afternoon with how to get rid of torpor, which is a good way to finish since everyone seems to be torpid. So you'll know exactly what torpor is. You may not know anything else right now, but you know what torpor is. So in the root text, Guru Rinpoche simply says, if you're torpid, strengthen your physical posture, exert more vigor, and perform physical exercises. Raise your gaze, look up into space, and sharpen or clarify your awareness. First of all, the term torpor here, which literally means sinking or sunken, can indicate three different states in meditation, three types of torpor. The first is torpor per se, which is where your mind is sunk into itself so that there is no brightness or lucidity or sharpness to your awareness. So we could simply call that dullness. Your mind is just kind of dull. The second is obscurity, which is where your mind seems temporarily incapable of any clear action. It's just vague. It's just a state of vague obscurity. And the third is drowsiness, where it's simply that you're half asleep, and you're falling asleep. Now, Lama said, these are not problems for sporadic meditators. These are problems for those who practice a lot. Because if you're sporadic meditators, if you only practice a few minutes a day, or even less than that, then you can always schedule your meditation so that it's at the right time, so that you're bright and chirpy. And you won't have to struggle with drowsiness or dullness or obscurity. The people who have to wrestle with these things are people who really meditate, who meditate enough that they can't schedule it to when it's going to be ideal, because they're doing it a lot of the time. And if you're doing meditation a lot of the time, you are going to have to deal with drowsiness, dullness, and obscurity. Regardless of which of the three it is, and the three are distinct in experience but similar in remedy, the solutions will apply to all three. So for all three, the first thing is to tighten up. So tighten up your posture. And so use some muscular strength to make sure that your posture is strictly correct. And along with that, you can do physical exercises that dispel torpor. There are specific physical exercises within the Adhisara, or physical yoga discipline, of the six dharmas and other such cycles. But you can also simply use a common Hatha yoga techniques, Lama said, if you want to, if you know those, or anything else that will shake you out of it. Then the most important thing is that you make your posture straight, and then that you raise your gaze. So if you were looking downward or straight forward, look upward. The level of your gaze, partly because it requires effort to sustain an upward gaze, is a little bit like the volume control on the sharpness of your mind. So if you want to turn the volume up, lift your gaze and make sure that you're not letting your eyes close and stay closed every time you blink. And then sharpen your awareness. In other words, if your meditation is an experience of both the lucidity and emptiness, then focus on the lucidity until the torpor has been dispelled. Another thing you can do is you can forcefully hold your mind to a specific location, such as the center of your heart, or the top of your head, and so on, and hold your mind forcefully to that. And then there are things you can do that are preventative. The first is to avoid overly rich food. And overly rich food means the type of food that makes you drowsy. So like lots of butter, lots of meat, and lots of liquor. Those three are traditionally called rich food. And so avoid lots of butter, lots of meat, and lots of liquor. And eat lightly. And then make sure that you're not overdressed when you're meditating. If you're too warm, that will also put you to sleep. So whatever you're wearing when you find yourself drowsy in meditation, take some of it off. And keep on taking it off until you're not drowsy anymore. And Lama said if you're alone, then you can strip naked. It's fine. No one's going to mind. No one's there. I said in this country, you can't do that in public. Back home, no one cares. But here, they don't like it. So don't do it if you're in public. But if you're alone and you're meditating, keep on taking off garments until you wake up. Because warmth puts us to sleep. And open a window. And you can also, if it's bad enough, sit in a breeze, like a place where the wind is hitting you, or the breeze, so there's lots of air, and that will help also. So those are the means for dispelling torpor, which includes dullness, obscurity, and drowsiness. And we'll stop there appropriately for this afternoon.
Thank you. Exactly 5 minutes. Okay, dedication. Then tomorrow morning we continue the teaching. Tomorrow afternoon we have
Q&A?
Q&A.
Okay.
Yeah, everyone have question and do Q&A. Sonam de Tamji Zebani Jiga Namje Palava Trova Ye Sipen Sole Trova Yo Gewa De Jiwoga Sona Yigi Sozo De Sona Yigi Lezam Tamba Kenye Toba Yo Sanjo Semne Rumbo Je Maji Pana Jijore Jiba nyamba meba da kone kondo bewara yo simji tamji deda denjur ngendo tamji tada tombara yo sanjo samba ganda sarjo deda ganje mola raba yo sanje reje zenze dambe ga jargan de ya danda le ma sa je me zo